Welcome. It's the Long Coat Mafia, the internet's most hated and mafia-themed geek podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the internet's most hated mafia-themed geek podcast, the Long Coat Mafia podcast. It is I, the Reverend Godfather, the show's main host and frontman, and I must say, today I am bursting with good fanboy energy, and if it sounds like it, that's because, again, I am. Why am I bursting with good fanboy energy? It's because I just got done speaking with John Johnson from Darkstone Entertainment, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with this gentleman, you will be familiar with this gentleman by the time the episode has ended, because he is a wonderful man who makes, I don't want to say weird films, but he makes a lot of movies and series and shorts and everything else. So you'll hear him talk about how he became a filmmaker, the process he takes to make films and get them out to his audience, and plus working as a filmmaker with Parkinson's disease. Yes, you want to stick around for this. It is a wonderful, I don't want to say tale, it's a wonderful biography, it's a wonderful episode that you have to listen to. Literally, you want to know more about this man, what he's been putting out, what he's been dealing with, and plus, what he enjoys doing. And that is making films and putting out great movies for all of you. So, I'm going to step back and let the Skype call happen so you can find out more about John Johnson right now. Folks, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the intro. And with me today, we've been trying to have this gentleman on for the past 3 years, if not since we started the show. My co-host has been bugging me to have him on, and we finally got him on. And could you kindly introduce yourself, sir, and what you do?
My name is John Johnson, and thank you for having me, finally. And I make a ridiculous amount of movies. Some might say too much.
I wouldn't say that. The company, you're the one that founded Darkstone Entertainment.
Yes,
right?
Sir. Darkstone Entertainment, I came up with in 1993 on August 3rd in my bedroom with a couple witnesses.
To kind of try to start from the beginning, you're primarily known for making, I don't want to say cheesy, because some of them are pretty good in regards to storyline. Why horror, though? Why horror and fantasy?
Well, so when I first decided that I was going to be a filmmaker, I lived in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I graduated early in 4th grade, so I had a 5-month summer in a new town that I didn't know anybody in. And I knew I was interested in being a filmmaker. I had made one short at that point, and I knew like this was something I wanted to do, so I went to a video store called Home Cinema, and I said I wanted an education in film, and what I would do is I would rent 2,000 movies from them, and they would cut me a deal. And what they did is they said a dime for new releases and a nickel for older films. So in those 5 months, I watched 2,000 movies, which was amazing. I mowed lawns during the day, and then I'd watch 8 to 10 movies a night, every night. And what I did is I started renting one from every genre. Like one comedy, one drama, one romantic comedy, one horror, one sci-fi. And as it progressed, I got more interest out of the storylines that were coming out of horror. And so I'd rent 2 horror movies and 8 or 6 other movies from other genres. And then it was 5 movies from horror and 4 movies. And then eventually I was just consuming everything I possibly could horror. And then, you know, stuff, other movies as well, but mostly horror, just because the whole, you know, when you sit down to watch a horror film, you're willing to accept anything right off the bat. Like if you're making a drama and you're like, or a sci-fi film, and you're like, okay, it's a steampunk movie, so you have to explain how the science of steampunk works for them to believe it, especially if it's like a drama. But if you're a horror film, within 10 minutes you can say, well, the air is purple. And you're like, okay, the air is purple. Like, you just immediately, you're willing to just jump into whatever storyline and reality that you create without having to over-explain it. You can just make a statement and then go right into it. And I think that's what I love about horror, because for the most part, every horror film has a strong subgenre. There's horror comedy, horror action, horror drama, horror western. Like, they all have, rarely do you find horror films now that are just straight horror. Like, they always have some kind of really strong subgenre. So it's just a big market, and a lot of stories can be told there, and that's what I like about it.
Personally, I don't think I've ever seen a horror western before. That's just me personally. I don't think they're that...
they're not super common. I've made one, and there is a few zombie... Danny Trejo plays a zombie hunter in the Old West. So there is a few of these. But they are more rare. So,
and as obviously you said you got inspired to be a film. I won't say inspired, but you want to learn to be a filmmaker as what in kind of elementary school. But what really inspired you to learn to be a filmmaker? What was there something that was that catalyst that say I want to be a filmmaker? I want to learn to do this. What was it?
I don't think there was anything. I think I just was either cursed or lucky that the second that I was born, I knew I wanted to perform and tell stories. Like, I just always knew. When I was in first grade, I wrote and directed a play that was performed for the entire school, and then made my first short film, which basically was based off of V, the TV series, with laser tag guns. Like, when I was in second grade, and then I took some time where I just was a kid, but I always kind of knew. And then when I was 12, I was like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't really know if there was an incident that incited it, rather than me just saying, okay, I waited long enough, I'm done being not me, and now I'm just going to be me for the rest of my life.
So what you learned was basically trial and error, or did you finally say, I want to go to some sort of schooling for this, or for this?
I'm sorry.
What was that?
In the early 90s, there really wasn't too many avenues for learning. This was before the real independent market burst of Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, and Robert Rodriguez. Which was like 94, 95 when they became, everybody knew them. So I didn't really have a choice but for my entire freshman and sophomore year of high school, I would write a movie on Tuesday through Thursday, shoot it Friday, edit it Sunday, screen it Monday night, and then start all over again. And I did that every weekend for definitely all of my freshman year. And then somewhere in the middle of the sophomore year, I decided to make a feature, which changed. The whole game was different at that point.
And we'll get into the difference between, even though we had this discussion many times in the past on your YouTube channel, on not so much YouTube, but your Facebook page several times, but over the years, even though technology has become more available and easier, has working with the late Conrad Brooks and briefly Lloyd Kaufman helped refine your skills as a filmmaker and a storyteller at all?
Well, I mean, Lloyd so much isn't as an inspiration so much as a storyteller as he is a producer. Same with Ed Wood. These guys are relentless filmmakers. Like, it's the really inspiring part about looking at their careers is just the admiration for what they did versus like the work itself. Like I enjoy a good trauma film and, you know, an Ed Wood film, but I don't know if any of them inspired me directly. But like an autobiography by Lloyd Kaufman and Conrad Brooks goes a lot further, or, you know, or Ed Wood. Like learning how they just kept going and kept making movie after movie after movie. I think that's what attracted me more to them than the work they were doing themselves.
And just for the aspect, so we can kind of, since I'm getting that little almost roadblock in my head, so much to ask you and everything else. And in order to kind of promote your latest movie coming out, can you, which is Darknet, which you've, I think, funded yourself both on the back end and on through Kickstarter, also to publish yourself or distribute yourself, which we'll also get to in a little bit. But on the most part, what is your process in regards to making movies such as like Darknet?
Well, that's Darknet has a new strategy. You know, for many, many years, I would go to investors, shoot the film, sell the film to a company, a distributor, and then hopefully make our money back or not make our money back, depending on the luck of the draw. And I did that since 2003. So I've been doing that a long time. But we realized that if we kept the budget smaller with the Darknet, and we only spent like maybe $10,000 on it and just call in a lot of favors, we could try, like if we sold 500 copies of the Blu-ray at, you know, $15 a pop, or $20 a pop, we made our money back just from the physical release. So that dynamic is why I was like, well, you know, let's try this and see what happens. Now, we did have investors raise the money for the movie itself, and then we did a Kickstarter for the back end to basically pay for the like creation of the discs and that kind of a thing. But so far so good. We haven't started selling them yet, so we don't know if it's going to work. But I know Plan 9 sold a lot of copies, and we didn't really get a big check from that. And so it was like, well, I just did the math, and it was like, why aren't we trying? Now, we don't have the reach. We're not going to be in Walmart, but we get a couple good conventions. I remember when I made a film, Shadowhunters, I had about 200 copies of the movie. I think Shadowhunters was my first release. And so I had a box of 200 copies, and we went to a convention called Horror Find in like 2004 or 5, and by the end of the weekend, we were sold out. We sold every last copy. And like, you know, you get to a good convention, and you can very well or very easily move all your merchandise if people respond to it. So, and then we're going to put it out on VOD as well. We might go through a distributor for VOD, but we're going to keep the rights to the physical, and that's where we're going to try to make our money back.
But that's probably one of the things that I wanted to go into in a bit. But what is the process of actually, or your process, if you wish to tell us, in regards to not so much funding it, but what is your process in creating a film from, in essence, idea to script to getting the film ready to, in essence, be filmed and so forth?
Well, ideas is basically just being struck by lightning. Like, I will be in a car, on the toilet, I will be out having dinner, and then all of a sudden just the basic 2-sentence idea will hit me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so then I, try to flesh it out, and I usually do that with long drives and music. I'll just put on, like, inspiring music and just think about my idea and see if I can build any scenes, like if I start seeing the movie, essentially. And I use music as a tool for that. If I've got a good feel for the scenes to where I get to where I can see the trailer. Like, if I can get that far, I'm like, okay, I like these shots would go well in the trailer, and this would kind of make it feel like the story. Then I get to the point where, like, okay, we go put the producer hat on, find a time slot for it. It's like, okay, we can make the movie at this time, And then at that point, I seclude myself or go away. I sever myself from my life for 4 or 5 days and write the first draft of the script. And I usually have to. Now, I might have like visitors. Sometimes I'll have comedians come over and like run my jokes by them if I'm doing something funny. Or if we're doing something that's got a lot of sex in it, I'll have a model come over and I'll just shoot pictures of like the angles that I'm kind of seeing in my head of like the scenes I want to do, just to kind of inspire myself. Actually, I schedule a lot of interviews for podcasts like yourself because it just gets your brain flowing to like start talking about your craft and your work and stuff like that, to kind of break away from just writing. And that's kind of, so I kind of like build that up, and then I write the script. And then once the script is done, if I don't feel 100% confident in it, which is rare, I will have a read through. We'll get a bunch of actors together, listen to them read through the script, and see, like, kind of hear it. Then do another draft, and then by that point, I'm usually ready to go, unless there's a big problem with it, like something doesn't work or something to that effect. And then I go into production.
And with production now, over the past couple of days, I went through my Darkstone library that I have here at my place, and I did. Granted, I'm familiar with a good portion of your work, even though it's a very small percentage of the overwhelmingly large library you have done in the past, and I commend you for that. But has there been films in production that might have been a logistical or a stunt nightmare in any shape or form?
I have only lost, I think, 2 movies. As in, when I started shooting, I was not able to complete them. One was something called Night Stalkers, which I did in 2008, and it actually wasn't a movie. It was I think it was a 15-hour television show, and the funding kind of fell out on it. We lost one of the leads, and it just became clear that we weren't going to be able to do it. And so that one I lost, and I want to say there was another one in high school. But for the most part, like, if I get to the green light of like day one of shooting, I don't lose the production. I'll rewrite. I've lost like actors and sequences and scenes and sets, and I will go the night before. What I do is I go rent like a hotel room, and I go sit in the hotel room and I rewrite the whole, like, everything that we're doing and just kind of fix the problem.
The reason why I ask is because the other night I finally sat down and watched my copy of The Jester, and yeah. Again, that's something later on that I'll get into. But while I was talking, obviously you're familiar with the movie because you made it. The reason why I brought up the aspect of logistical nightmares is because there was at least one fire stunt in it, and so there's been times in the past you said you've even hurt yourself on set.
I see.
Yeah. So has there been instances where that you initially thought that, okay, this was a good idea, and to turn out it was a bad idea? Not just for yourself, but others.
I don't believe anybody other than myself has been really hurt on set. And that's usually because if I write something that's a little bit more dangerous, I write it for myself because I don't want to put anybody else in that circumstance. The fire stunts that you saw was actually done by a professional. And we did, we've even gone into explosions. Like, we have a Civil War sequence in a time travel film where we have a cannon and like the ground's blowing up. And these guys who know how to do that have it down to such a science that like, there's really no danger because they just know what they're doing.
So you wouldn't put it past, instead of doing, I can do this. There have been times that you said, okay, I might be able to do this, but let's get a professional on set who knows the ins and outs that can do this so safely that it looks dangerous, looks complex, but in reality to them, it's a Tuesday.
Exactly. Like, I mean, there's was actually a lot of the stuff, like in The Jester, when before I wrote the script, I got together with the stunt crew, and we walked around the location, and I said, what are some of the things that you can do? And they said, you know, I can do a 20-foot flamethrower coming out of somebody's hand. I can do a deer spine getting pulled out. They walked me through what they could do, and then I actually wrote it into the movie because of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I would attempt anything other than stunt work with myself. Anything with like pyrotechnics or because I have no training with any of that stuff. So like I would I definitely. Well, I guess there was Skeleton Key 1. We went maybe a little. There was a guy who showed me a trick of how you could light your hand on fire and then quickly put it out, like with using this gel. And so we did that on. But I had seen him do it, and I had been a part of him doing it. So we did it, and everything was fine. But I guess that might have been. I might not do that today. Like right. I probably let somebody else handle that versus me doing it.
So back then, when you see old footage like that, you're just chalking it up to, I was young, dumb, and potentially stupid for doing something like that, but it worked out.
Oh, sure. A lot of the stunts that I've done, there was a movie I made called Alucard, where I go tumbling down these stairs, and they have no rail. So, like, if I had just bumped a little to the left, I would have fallen off of it, and I'm doing it in cowboy boots, so I have no control of anything other than just hope to make it to the bottom of the stairs. I might not do that today. Where, you know, when I was 23, it was like, whatever. Now, so if you get a nail in the back, it'll be fine.
Because we're kind of still talking about the filming process and that what you go into. You've talked about a little bit about self-distribution and going through a distributor. What is the difference between, especially with the recent months with people talking, at least some filmmakers talking about Amazon, what is the difference between, or your experience, at least that you're able to tell us or willing to tell us about the difference between going through a distributor versus Amazon versus maybe something like right now, trying to put out something yourself?
Well, I'm very new to the self-distribution angle. I just started releasing things on Amazon I don't even think it's been a full year yet, so I'm very new to it. So far as that is concerned, you essentially create a business with Amazon, and they kind of level you out of like what realm, what you can do with that business. And then, you know, I got the okay to upload, you know, movies and stuff to Amazon, which is a difficult process because they scrutinize quite a bit, especially if they're going to put you on Prime, because that's like their bread and butter. So I go through all the loops and stuff with that, and then and I get that up. But in the older days, you would go to a distributor, or a distributor would come to you. You know, if you had one come to you, you're doing good. But they would give you there'd be three different kinds of deals. There would be, here's money up front to buy the movie outright, and we can go do whatever we want with it. Then there is, it's a 50-50 cut. Whatever I make off of it, I give you 50 cents on every dollar that I make. Then the most common deal is, we have to make a certain amount of money first for the effort that we put into releasing your film, whether it's making your trailer, your poster, traveling to not conventions, but like film markets, and selling your film. And then usually that's the deal that everybody gets. And then after they make back whatever set amount of money that they hope to make back, then you get your 50-50 cut. Most small-time filmmakers get that deal, and it never really turns out good because they never seem to make the money that they originally planned to make. At that point, you have to kind of, when you get that deal offer, that means you don't have Tom Hanks in the movie. So they're not willing to pay you up front for it. So the goal at that point is to just get it out there. to, like, you know you might not make a dime off the movie, but is it worth it to just use their resources to get it to reach as far as it possibly can? And I've made that deal many, many times.
I know recently with at least Plan 9, and I'm not, maybe the Darknet, with some, as a recent production that you have currently finished on, you've gotten a little bit bigger names in your production. So over the years, have you considered your company, Darkstone, grown to that point that you're able to get at least now a few bigger names in your production?
Yeah, I mean, Darkstone we have a really good reputation that I'm aware of. There could be dark alley talk that I don't know about just yet, but for the most part, we luckily have been able to make films on a certain quality level, and we treat people really, really well. And so because of that and that word of mouth, we've been able to get bigger name actors to come work on our films because they feel that they might be treated well and at the same time make something that they might like. They at least hope that they would like. So, you know, Darkstone, when I was making Shadowhunters, you know, we didn't have that reputation. We were really just getting known. But we've been very lucky to kind of up our gear every few years. We get nicer cameras, we get nicer equipment, we learn as we go, and I think the biggest one is that we treat everybody really well, and I think that goes a long way with like why people want to work
correlate with what you're saying. I think Shadowhunters, if I'm familiar with your timeline, your first official release that I know of, and
yes,
not to mention, I could agree with you in regards to upgrading equipment. It seems over the past at least 10 years, a lot of the digital stuff especially has become way cheap, especially the high-def stuff has become way cheaper and more available for everyone to get their hands on in a way.
Sure, absolutely. It's definitely...
Even though you might be, I won't say one of the bigger names, or you said you're starting to become one of the more well-known names in the industry, can you say, as this quasi-professional, I don't mean to insult you, that because the technology is becoming more and more available to everybody, have you seen any type of increase of more and more independent filmmakers out there that are trying to get their leg into everything like you once did, maybe way back in the day?
Oh, sure. The hard part is, so this is how it kind of works out, and this is probably why I've been able to get the success that I have. Is when I first moved to Charlottesville, there was a lot of filmmakers. They all had DV cameras. They all had HD. They were all excited. They were, there was maybe 15 of them. And, over time, they realized that how hard and difficult it is to be a filmmaker. And they kind of changed. They either quit or change their pace or just get burned out. And I last past them. Now in Charlottesville, there's probably 5 filmmakers. And I think I got the reputation just because I'm still here, where a lot of them have kind of backed off of it. Just because it's a very difficult thing to do. You have to get rid of all your pride. You have to, eat ramen for years. It's not an easy road, but if you have that just demon inside your gut that makes you tell these stories and keep going, it kind of gets there. But I think I'm living the life of a Highlander or a Connor McLeod. I'm they keep dropping off. because they keep getting knocked off, and there's fewer and fewer of us getting to that quickening.
But that kind of being said, since you started, I want to say officially, putting out or selling movies on either DVD, Blu-ray, so forth and so on, was there any pinnacle moment that says, wait a minute, I might have something here in regards to, I'm doing something right, whether it be Shadowhunters or the infamous, I don't want to say infamous, but the fun movie, Skeleton Key, that's like, wait a minute, I'm onto something. This is the key, Darkstones becoming a thing. Has there been that moment yet?
Yeah, I mean, they're on many levels. I definitely, there's been moments where I was at conventions where people knew who I was. And this was before Facebook was really a thing, and maybe MySpace was around, but I had never been you make these movies and you put them out there, and they go to Rose's and they go to Kmart and in the Dollar Bin, and you never hear about it again. But then when you're at a convention and somebody stops and just quotes your movie to you, or just reacts to knowing who you are. That was a big moment for me, realizing, because I want to say I was at Spooky Empire in Orlando, and I was peddling, I can't remember what movie it was, maybe it was 3 or 4 movies, but I was peddling a bunch of movies. And this gentleman came by the table and was shocked to see me, and I was shocked to see him. And he said he came to see John Carpenter, but didn't know that I was going to be there, and got very excited about it, and left, and came back with 6 of his friends, I believe it was Skeleton Key was the film of their choice, and I took a bunch of pictures with them, and it was definitely that moment when I realized that people are watching these things, because you just didn't know. I mean, all you would get is you go on IMDb and somebody's throwing spitballs at you, or negative YouTube comments, and you can't really weigh on that, because they're mad about they had the wrong grapefruit that morning. But so you can't really judge it until that moment, and then it actually has grown immensely in the last couple of years, where people are now recognizing me in public that aren't at a horror convention. And so it's not so much about the fame of it as it is wow, you've actually seen my stuff. My stuff is available where you, at your, some guy or gal in their, house just came across my work. And that is an amazing feeling. And, probably, I think I'll have to be buried with a camera just in case I can do something in the afterlife.
I know. To me, it seems like, I don't know if you noticed it with the conventions. I only bring it because you mentioned it. Skeleton Key seems to be that gateway drug that at least some of the older fans got into your work. I know we've kind of covered this in some of your streams, that I first met you back in 2006 at Horror Find out of Baltimore, and it was my first horror convention ever. And me and my co-host spent the night, and I think it was that Saturday night, you were premiering the first Skeleton Key outside, and we kind of dismissed it. Again, first horror kind of, we might even thought, what the heck is this? And, this nonsense, and just dismissed it. It being after hours, you have a lot of the parties, the shindigs. Everybody's been drinking all day, and we just knew that, hey, tomorrow when we woke up, hey, in a few hours, this weird kooky guy by the name of John Johnson is kind of premiering or having a kind of a test screening of Skeleton Key in one of the smaller little rooms. And we decided, we went out, had breakfast, came in just as it was starting, the movie was starting. We laughed our butts off, and I was like, yeah, I got to get this, find out where to pre-order this. And it was just one of those, yeah, I gotta have this. I gotta definitely keep an eye on this guy. But one of the other things I want to kind of bring up, we kind of touched on this on, again, one of your things, film versus short. What is your, for the audience to kind of know and hear your understanding, what's the difference between, or I should say, John Johnson's definition of a film versus a short? Is there a time limit, or is it basically story-wise, or how does it work in lessons for you?
Well, technically, I think if you're over 70 minutes, you're a feature. And if you're under 70 minutes, you're considered a short, so far as like festivals are concerned when they categorize. But normally, if your short film is over 20 minutes, you're kind of in your own world. Like, it's really, like, that's a difficult thing to make, like, a 50-minute movie. Like, if you're making a TV pilot, then that kind of fits. But I would say, like, if an authentic short film is 20 minutes or under, and an authentic feature film is 70 minutes and over. The things in the middle, I don't know how to classify them yet, because they're just weird animals. Story-wise, you're completely telling different stories. A short film is completely plot-based. There's no real character development. It's really about establishing a tone, and then it's really most of them have a twist at the end or a reveal, and that's kind of like the main focus of a short film. Where a feature is a little bit more character-based, not quite like a television show. A television show is completely character-based. The story is so secondary to the characters, where in a feature, the characters are there, but they're secondary to the main thrive of the movie.
One of the things that brings up a point, because being at some conventions, pop culture conventions, I've seen many people say, hey, I have this independent movie I would like you to check out. You know, you have that, they're like you doing the standard hustle. Hey, I'm a filmmaker, this is my movie, I'd like you to buy a DVD or Blu-ray. And
sure.
They're saying it's a feature film, and it's coming to find out it's under an hour. It's 45 minutes to an hour. To me, personally, it's more along the lines, it's got to be at least an hour and 15 minutes before it's considered a movie, at least. The old standard of the 80s and 90s, where movies started at 30 minutes or ended at 30 minutes. Now movies are closer to 2.5, 3 hours. So
right. Yeah, that's a difficult. I would feel a little gypped if I was told it was a feature and it was 45 minutes long. You would be upset about that because you wanted a longer form story, longer format. Hopefully they're just not educated enough to know that is not a feature versus like trying to, pull a scam or something like that.
Right. I want to kind of leave Kung. I know you didn't do the movie. I want to leave Kung Fury out of it because the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people got misinformed, or they thought it was a full-length movie when it was considered. Even the people who made it said it was a short. When I finally got around to this fever dream of a movie, which shocked the heck out of me.
Sure.
Personally, I thought it was amazing how he did it and everything else. I was just sitting there like, what? It's only a half hour long? I wanted longer. Give me more. Give me more. Personally, I think that's the point of being a filmmaker, that even if you're stuck at a certain point, if you can get your audience saying, I want to know more, or, hey, that was way better than I expected, you're, in essence, as a filmmaker, doing your job right. Have you come across fans saying, hey, I saw Deceptors, or I saw Plan 9, I want more. In reference to, I want to know more. Do a sequel.
Yeah, just to go back on Kung Fury, just a tad, Kung Fury was the first Kickstarter or crowdfunding thing that I ever contributed to. because it was very early on, and I just saw what they were doing and thought it was amazing. I was bummed that it wasn't a feature myself, but I was still so happy with what they did. Like, you can't really complain too much. But I was in the same boat. I wanted more. So far as I have a really bad habit of turning a short film into like something that would be a series, where it always kind of ends with like there's a cliffhanger and I've established these characters and you want to see more, and then if it doesn't really pan out and not enough people like the pilot, essentially, I don't make any more of them, because I kind of just feel it out to see if they like the idea or not. But I think what I hear more than the biggest compliment, or not the biggest compliment, but the most common compliment I get is that, oh, I saw your movie. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I get that all the time. Like, people, they assume that it's going to be terrible, and then it's not terrible, then they're happy about that idea. That's kind of been a staple of mine for a long time. And I'm happy with it because I was able to entertain them a little bit, and that's what we were there to do. I definitely get, the sequel things, because I have a lot of movies that kind of lead to like they're going to be a longer series. And so, like Deceptors, where it kind of ends like, oh, there's more adventures to come. And I kind of like those movies that end that way as well, because I was tormented by Sword and the Sorcerer and Buckaroo Banzai, that all like, had these titles at the end of the film where just like, there's going to be another one. And then there never was another one. But so I kind of went with that same route where like Deceptors is like, well, they're going on another adventure that can be told in your head. Like, it's not a cliffhangers and like because the story itself had been wrapped up. The bad guys had been defeated. They were ready to, now they're just going into another world to, go on another adventure. And if, there was an overwhelming, want for a sequel, I would have done it. But Deceptors kind of faded into the darkness and no one really talked about it. But then every once in a while, somebody would come to me and be like, I found it at a pawn shop and I loved it. So,
in essence, doesn't Shadowhunters have quasi sequels to it, though?
Yeah, Shadowhunters was a world that was... so the way the sequels came to be, we did shoot a feature-length sequel that we got completed, but then the downfall of SD Movies came where no company was buying SD Movies. So I had about 4 features that just went onto a shelf because we knew there was nothing we could do with them. No one was buying those movies now. And that being said, now that I've got this Amazon life, they are now in the plans to be finished and released on Amazon. But at the time, in like 2007 or 2008, we just got shut down. We were just like, they only want HD. And I was like, oh no, I got all these movies that are not HD. And so there was that part of the life. But the sequel short films that I did, I always liked the world of Shadowhunters that we created. Like the Pulp Fiction kind of fedora, trench coat, magic users. And if I ever get slotted to make a short film where somebody's like, I need a short film for you in like 2 weeks and I've got no ideas on the back burner, I'll make a Shadowhunter short because I love that world. And I'm like, okay, I know the groundwork's already been done, so I could just write another short story in that world. And that happened twice.
Let me just add, Monique Dupree, as talented as she is, does credit you for helping her learn how to direct, because she said it's where she cut her teeth in regards to her directorial debut. So yeah, she did say that. She does credit you. She does, I think, have some professional love for you, but I don't quote Monique, if you're listening to this, I'm not fully quoting you this, but I'm just saying that you're giving Johnny some deep-hearted credit. So
yeah, no, she's an amazing talent in her own right in so many different fashions and genres, and from wrestling to photos to horror movies. She has her toes in a million pots. But yeah, she liked Shadowhunters and liked the story of it, and she said, I want to make a short film and I want to direct it and I want you to kind of help me do it. And I knew she liked Shadowhunters, and I was like, what if I just did a Shadowhunters movie? And there was a wrestler from, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to show my true colors. I don't know enough about wrestling, and I get yelled at all the time for this, but his name's Tommy Dreamer. I know that. And I believe he was in the WWE, if I'm getting that correctly.
I'm not sure. I'm almost in the same boat as you are. So, folks at home, please just email the show and at longcoatmafia@gmail.com and let us know. And when we get our next episode out, or when we get the emails in, we'll be happy to include your email. So
yes, yeah. Thank you guys for that. I mean, the horror world and the wrestling world they get in tandem a lot. And so I've spent weekends with wrestlers that I didn't know before, because I didn't know the genre. But Tommy Dreamer was in the movie. She was working with, he was working with Monique on their wrestling shows together. But then there was a convention that I was asked to be a guest at, and that they were flying in a wrestler to my hometown and asked if he could ride down with me. And I was like, sure, why not? And it turns out this guy his name was Animal, and he was one of the Road Warriors. And I had seen pictures of him when I was a kid, but I had no idea. And he gets in the car, and he used to hang out with Andre the Giant, and so I just started asking all these Andre the Giant questions, and it was amazing to kind of learn that world. But I'm very new to it, but I keep getting put into that. Like, I'm always right beside one of these guys, and so I'm learning as I go. But in that Monique film, there is a very popular wrestler as well.
Kind of going to the aspect of learning as you go, recently, I won't say recently, but over the past few years, you've recently done deep dives into some of the classic genre characters, or horror characters, like the Mummy, the Frankenstein and Werewolf and Dracula. Can you tell us what so far you found out about that, and what do you have any plans to do anything in regards to these characters, aside from touching base with Dracula with the Alucard film that was put out many years ago?
Yeah, so it's called House of Horrors, and what it is after I made Plan 9, I got approached by a few companies that wanted me to write a script and not make the movie myself, but to give them a script. And I didn't end up doing it, but I was debating on, like, what would I write? And then I thought I really loved monster mashups where they take, famous monsters and put them all together. And it also kind of, it's sad because these guys are cereal boxes now. Like, they're not scary like they used to be. So I thought it would be fun to try to, one, educate myself with a huge curriculum of resources for every monster. And I was going to write this script. And I'm still in my studies because I did every monster to an extreme. And then now I'm in versus films and then monster mashups to follow. And then I think I'm going to write a script, but I don't know if I'm going to let it go. I might want to do it myself. Obviously I had a love for Dracula making Alucard, but now I'm, deep diving on each one of these guys and just the history of them and all the different takes on them and how they affected pop culture. And if I don't write a script after all the work I've put into it, I think Mariah and a few of the fans will just shoot me because I've brought it into their lives since 2015. Mariah comes in all the time, and I'm watching some random black and white movie or some really bad swamp monster movie, and it's like, well, I'm making a study, and so she sits down. She doesn't like bad movies the way I like bad movies. So when I watch it, I'm having a blast. When Mariah watches it, she's just seeing a bad movie. So I owe her a script, I think, by the end of it. Otherwise, I might not be able to make movies ever again.
That being said, what is your classification of a bad movie? I know it's kind of goes from person to person, but what is your classification of a bad movie?
Well, so I think I think you have to draw a line between an entertaining movie and a bad movie. I think there are movies that have very poor production value and production quality that are super entertaining. So I don't think once they're entertaining, they would be considered a bad movie, but technically they're a bad movie because you're watching the boom and you're seeing all the flaws of the filmmaking. I think a bad movie is a film that is hard to watch because from the production value to the storyline to the acting to it's not telling its story well, and it's not telling a story or has any kind of redeemable quality to where, like, well, the story doesn't make any sense, but that guy's really funny, or that guy's a really good actor, or that girl is super hot, or something to balance the scale. But if it lacks all of those things, then I would say it would be considered a bad movie. Now, bad movies and B movies, there's so many genres and like classifications of these things that it's hard to like, because it really is by the perspective of the person watching it, what's bad and what's good. But for me personally, I'd say I would call it a bad movie if the production value is low, but I still argue that it's an entertaining film. But if I call a movie bad, it just means that it just fell short on telling its story or fell short in being entertaining.
Personally, I think it's a movie that kind of has, I think you might agree, bounce to it, meaning that it could be really bad, as you said, either production value or like films like Piranha, the first Piranha. It's a bad movie, but it's got bounce, meaning it's so bad somehow it bounces back to good. But you could have a mainstream Hollywood film that for some strange reason just doesn't have that hook or that bounce to keep you entertained in regards to I don't want to watch this no more, or it might not have bounce now, like Big Trouble in Little China or The Thing, whereas it doesn't have bounce. It might be an entertaining film, but it doesn't have bounce now, but 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, somehow people are finding this film and that bounce finally happens, and it's part of that cult classic. So
yeah, I mean, one of the big ones for that was Army of Darkness.
Right.
When Army of the Darkness first came out, no one thought it was, like, no one responded to it until years later when it hit VHS. I had a conversation with Sam Raimi, and this was right after Army of Darkness had collapsed. And he completely threw me off guard when he just said, where did I go wrong with this movie? And I saw it, and I loved it. I at that point, did not see what he was seeing. I didn't understand it. I said I was 15 or something. So I just mumbled some, fanboy jargon, and he just kind of passed it off. So I am definitely embarrassed to this day of that conversation. But I mean, I didn't understand where he was coming from. But of course now, he would never say that. He would never make that statement, because it finally found its audience. But in 1994, I think, is when we had this conversation. That had not happened yet, and he just thought he shot himself in the foot.
But right now, let's see, what else? I'm going through notes. One of the things I wanted to bring up was with some of your DVD films, if not a sizable chunk, and since, as you stated, Darknet will be out soon, both either on video demand or on DVD or both. If it's out as physical media, will it have the classic Darkstone Easter eggs as a part of it?
Absolutely. Every disc that I can release myself or have say in how it's released, I will always have a DZone because I almost let the DZone go years ago, and the fans told me that was a bad idea. So it'll always have a DZone and Easter eggs on the DVD, because that's just the fun of doing the extra features, and people seem to really like it. And in fact, the DZones are actually going to start to be released on Amazon as well, which is exciting.
And that being said, for the folks at home that are not familiar with John Johnson's works and his DVDs, or the Darkstone DVDs that is out there, the DZone is always played. You, in essence, you're not the host. Somebody is playing you. Why?
Right.
What is it a joke? Is it a gag? How did that idea come to fruition?
It was definitely a joke. I was at a film festival where I had met the DP named Vince Sweeney, who I worked with on many films, including Plan 9, and we were both up for the same award. But he's a little camera shy, which is hilarious because he uses cameras, but he doesn't like his picture taken or to be in front of the camera in any way. And we were both up for the same award, and we just met that weekend, and we hit it off really, really well. And he said, if I win the award, if he wins the award, would I go up and pretend to be him and accept it? And he won because his film was better. And but I went up and accepted the award because no one knew who I was or who he was at that time. And I always thought that was really funny. And so when we got to do the DZone, to be honest, I didn't want to set the camera up, and then because at that point in time there wasn't much of a crew, so it was like set the camera up and then go stand in front of it and do it like a vlog, or I could run the camera and just somebody else could be me the way I was Vince, and make it work that way. And that's kind of what we did, because I just thought it was funnier, seeing somebody say that they're me. And of course now, there's still people who will see the DZone and think I'm whoever that person is. But now it's getting to the point where that's a smaller demographic.
So more and more people are getting wise to the joke, but that's not the only Easter egg that appears either on the DVD or in the movie itself. Please tell us about the other infamous Easter egg you tend to put in your movies, Mr. Johnson, and I'm talking about the ketchup bottle.
The ketchup bottle, yes. So when I made films back in the day, the time I was making a movie every weekend, my only effects was Hunt's ketchup. I don't know why we went Hunt's over Heinz. I think it was because it was cheaper by like 30 cents. And I think it stayed red longer, where Heinz would slowly turn orange once it was spread. So I would have this Hunt's ketchup bottle, and we would be shooting, and we would accidentally just leave it out. And so we'd be walking by a car, and there's a ketchup bottle on the car because I forgot to take it down. And, we were racing through and just learning filmmaking, so we weren't reviewing our footage until like the day we were editing it, and we're like, oh crap, there's a ketchup bottle on that bookshelf. So when I finally got to the golden age of Darkstone, which was Alucard and starting these films, I thought it would be fun to keep that gag going, even though it started off as only a joke for me, because nobody knew any of the old films from the early days. But then it kind of became a thing where somebody's like, why was there a ketchup bottle in that bathtub? And
I was going to bring that up because it's one of the first things that the eye might go to in the first skeleton key is that there's a ketchup bottle in the bathtub. And you're like,
right,
why is there a ketchup bottle in the bathtub? That's a little odd. And becoming that new fan, finding out, oh yeah, it's a thing. And the ketchup bottle is the Waldo of the Darkstone world, that you have to find the ketchup bottle in the movie. Sure.
And I will admit that sometimes I've hidden it too well to where it's really hard to see, and then so I'm getting better at it. Where it's not like Skeleton Key, where like it completely throws you off of like you're not watching the movie, you're just looking at the ketchup bottle. So trying to find that in between where it's not too well hidden and it's not too in your face it's hard to do, but I love doing it.
And I must say, one of the things I did, I said it earlier in this broadcast, that the other day I was watching The Chester, and I knew, it's like, there's got to be an Easter egg on this DVD somewhere. Somewhere is that he hides one in every DVD. There's got to be somewhere, somehow on this DVD. And
yes.
I was going through the DZone and watched the outro, and I was like, this should be going back to the menu somewhere. And because of how I watch my DVDs, the timer comes up and it shows, instead of it being the usual like minute and a half, 2 minutes of what the outro was, it was closer to 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes. I was like, okay, there's the Easter egg. There's the Easter egg. And I was like, you, Johnny, you sneaky little SOB. There it is, right? You had to hide it there.
Sure.
So, I say that
we are on our website, especially because the movies are getting re-released. We're getting an Emerald edition of all of the old movies, starting with Alucard. But right now, if you go to our website and you can't find the Easter egg on the DVD, in our trivia section, there is a Easter egg listing of every DVD and where the Easter egg is, if you want to go find it on your own, versus or if you can't find it on your own and you want to like a cheat sheet, we do have it available.
Folks at home, I will provide links to John Johnson's Darkstone Entertainment site in the show description, the show notes, and as well as to the official his official Facebook page, his YouTube channel, and if he provides me with the proper link, his TikTok page as well, which he's been putting out feverishly little short 30-second clips on that, which provides good segue. Tell us about this whole TikTok phenomena that you are a part of right now, and seemingly, to kind of quote you, blowing up on.
Right. Yeah, TikTok has been a big part of my recent life. So it's essentially a video app that there was one that Twitter put out a while ago called Vine, which were these, I think it was 6-second clips, where it was kind of comedy oriented, where Vine went under, and because I don't think they ever figured out a way to make money at it. And so there was an app called Musical.ly that was a lip singing app. You'd pay for whatever, or they would pay for whatever song, and you just lip sync to it, which a lot of kids were on the app. But that got bought by a Chinese company called TikTok that was a mixture of the lip singing stuff and kind of sketch comedy. And I found it, and I was, I'm always looking for new ways to promote my films and get, find new eyes, a new fan bases, however I could do it. And I, shot a couple videos from set, just kind of promoting. I think it was the Darknet. It was that recent, and then all of a sudden I noticed that like we were being watched by thousands of people, and I was like, that can't be right. And then we had some trouble with our first account, so we switched to a new account. And I think for Christmas, my cat Goliath, who recently passed, he was in his sickly days, and so I started shooting some videos of him just kind of walking around the house and just hanging out, and those ended up exploding on TikTok in the 100,000 range of views, and altogether well over 1 million views once you add up all the videos so far. And so I realized that there was this whole new fan bases, not so much younger as they were just, they didn't know who I was, they didn't know what movies I made, they didn't know any of these things, but we are about 50 fans away from 10,000 subscribers. And that'll probably happen tonight or tomorrow, and I'm, kind of excited about it. Because it's just insane that many people start watching it. And so what we started doing is, doing ad-libs to, not ad-libs, but sync sound to, like, movie quotes that we like. We did Ghostbusters. We did Young Guns. We're going to be doing Labyrinth in the near future and Three Amigos. And we just do it in our pajamas in, like, my house, and people really respond to it. And they make fan videos of our stuff. But new people are finding Skeleton Key. There was a frat that had kidnapped a llama from a petting zoo, and then them with the llama were watching the Skeleton Key films, and they messaged me about it. So it's just a really exciting platform, because I've been making movies forever. So this is, it takes me 10 minutes to shoot a video if I have the idea together, or less, and it seems to be just bringing this whole new audience to Darkstone, and even to the point now where we're trying to define the old fans who have been with me forever since the golden age, and the new fans, because there's so many new ones in comparison to the old ones. So we're trying to define like a name for them, which we haven't quite been able to figure out yet. But I think that the guys who have been with me, so long, kind of deserve to be recognized for that. Even though I'm, all the new fans, I'm very grateful, and I'm very excited about it. I just, I don't want it to become the thing where, you hear people talk about a band, and then, like, I liked them before they got popular, and then they got popular, and I no longer like them. I don't want to be that. So I'm trying to balance it out as much as I can. And now with Amazon, we're being found by, Amazon and TikTok are the new platforms that I've taken Darkstone to, and we've had a lot of success with that. And so I don't know, it's a new territory. It's a huge part of everything I do now. More than Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, I've had a lot of success with TikTok and Amazon, and so.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I was about to say, I know you used to call us old timers, the old school fanboys and fan ghouls, if you want to pardon the pun. The Darkstone Legion. Would you have to come up with a new fan term for the younger folks, or would you still classify them as the Darkstone Legion?
Well, I guess Legion is kind of an over-encompassing word for all of them, because Legion is with a lot of people. So I think what I'm trying to do is come up with a name for the old school guys that, so that when they come to me, they can say, I'm this. And I'm like, which immediately tells me they know the old movies. Like, they're not just getting on the train now or more recently. Because right now, all the TikTokers are basically TikTokers. That's how they're like, I know you from TikTok. And so that they're already kind of classified because of that. But yeah, it's just I've been very lucky, and it's kind of amazing because I've been doing this a long, long time, and then all of a sudden to have 10,000 new eyes in what has it been, 2 months? Right. Like it's been nutty, and it's overwhelming. And when I do a live show on Facebook, and gentlemen like yourself climb on. And I don't have to explain who I am. Everybody knows the deal, and we can talk movies and stuff like that. When I go live on TikTok, I have to kind of explain who I am to these people, because they just seen the videos. They don't know anything about Darkstone. They don't even know Darkstone's a thing. But then once they do, they go to Amazon to check out the movies. They go to Facebook, and so it's an amazing platform for me as telling these little short, stories and shots from set, and I'm very grateful for the success that we've had with it.
Before we go into the next two topics, or say three topics, I do have an idea for you to kind of help just a spitball. You don't have to use it because you have the old schoolers like myself and the new folks from TikTok. My idea is basically you could have a pin or a button with the Darkstone logo on top and a key emanating from it as per like Skeleton Key, as reference to Skeleton Key and those movies in regards to the Golden Age, and the other one being a button or pin featuring a clock face and the Darkstones logo as a center, as a way of kind of, oh, you're from fans from TikTok and you guys are from the older school, and buttons are, I think, relatively cheap to have done up.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I definitely think I should make a limited edition, something like the button or something like that, for the old school fans. I think that's a great idea. Just something that they can get, so that they have it, because they've supported me the longest, and I will never forget those guys who basically built Darkstone to be what it is. I wouldn't be popular on TikTok if it wasn't for these old guys supporting me back in the day. Like, that just never would have happened. So I want to make sure that in no way they are forgotten or feel like they're forgotten.
All right. To kind of move things on a little bit, one of the things that is a common theme, or a relatively common theme in your movies other than the Ketchup Bottle, is every film takes place in the one, the only Nilbog. So it's a two-part question. Why why Nilbog? And two, why develop the lore for Darkstone's Nilbog?
Okay, so there's two answers to this question. The short answer is I like Troll 2. The long answer is, before I ever saw the movie Troll 2, I had a Trapper Keeper. And I really liked a movie called Monster Squad. And in Monster Squad, they would take, there's a scene where they take Dracula's name and they write it backwards, and it's Alucard, and he spells it out and realizes Dracula's called his house. So I, in my Trapper Keeper, took all the monsters' names and put them around backwards until I found Nilbog. And I was like, oh, that'd be a great name for a town. Like, the town of Nilbog. And so I started writing movies that took place in this town. Now, I got the idea for writing movies that took place in the town from another filmmaker who did something similar, where and it basically goes to John Hughes. I think John Hughes, all of his films take place in a fictitious town. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of, connect all the movies that they all happened in this same place. Now, I had not seen Troll 2 at that point in time. And basically, there's I can't remember what country he's from, but there's a foreign gentleman who had the same idea. And now people, especially after making Plan 9 from Outer Space, people think that I'm referencing Troll 2. So if I have to give a short answer, I think Troll 2 is hilarious. If the long answer, Monster Squad and a Trapper Keeper brought me to this.
But why now develop more of a lore or town lore, from a school mascot to a bakery or so forth and so on? Is it to make the town more interesting, or that way if you're at a restaurant and they don't want to let the name of the restaurant or diner know, you could just tack up, okay, this is the Nilbog Diner or something like that?
It's kind of all of the above. It's kind of fun because, one day I might be able to become, a Troma-esque kind of company where, they have a lot of merchandise for all kinds of stuff. So I know, like, right now we're working on a hot sauce that we're going to try to release through Darkstone ourselves. And I've been working hard on trying to perfect it, and I'm not there yet. I'm probably still a couple years away. There's so many avenues to try. But then we were like, once we create all these Nilbog things, we can actually sell like that you can get a T-shirt that has the Nilbog ketchup on it and not just be a Darkstone shirt. So there's a lot more options on how you can be a part of it. And then also on Facebook, I like creating the lore with the fans and doing a voting system and like say in this movie we want to have a bakery, and so they get to kind of, you know, now granted, if like the one who wins is something that doesn't work really at all, I'll veto it. But for the most part, the fans seem to have the heartbeat of Darkstone anyway. So they come up with things with me, and I think that's more fun because they know,
and it provides the fan interaction.
It does, and I like that a lot. And I mean, I make the movie for two people. I make it for myself, and I make it for the fan. And I'm trying to please both of us. Like, I want to like the movie, and I want to make a movie that they will like as well. And so I think them being a part of the creative process of making the lore and the town that it's in, I think it's just fun. And I'm not copywriting any of this stuff so far as the lore is concerned. So if you yourself want to make a Nilbog Bubbly T-shirt, I'm not coming after you. Like, right. It's whatever you want to do. Like, this is something that I just want everybody to be able to do and have fun with. I think the most expensive thing we bought is we actually got a Letterman jacket made for Seventh Guest, and I think it's worn again. It's in Give Up the Ghost as well, but it was like a $300 jacket that says Nilbog Howlers, which is the sports team of the high school, or the mascot of the high school, the Nilbog High School is a werewolf. And
I think Johnny just gave us a little bit of nod in regards to that, because I'm taking credit, original credit all those years ago for suggesting that idea of having the Nilbog Howlers or Timberwolves or something like that at that time. So.
Oh, hell yeah! That's awesome.
To kind of also, speaking of creativity, before in the pre-show, you kind of allowed me to touch on this. You were recently diagnosed with Parkinson's. Has that hindered your producing movies or your creativity at all, or it's the same John Johnson, and just that he has to work harder to be a little bit more creative now?
Well, to say that it hasn't slowed me down would be false. There's definitely times on set where I have to, because Parkinson's is a very strange animal. Like, it's not quite what everybody assumes it is, which means you just wiggle a lot. There's actually kind of attacks on your body where you look at the person and they're totally fine, but right now they're trying to keep their head from falling backwards. Like, it feels like somebody's just pulling you in all these different ways. So there has been times in the more recent year where I had to stop the set. I have to be like, guys, I need 25 minutes to get this out of my system, and then we'll go back on. And everybody has been super kind and letting me do that, and not adjusting their schedules a little bit if they have to go a half an hour over or something to that effect. It's a terrible, terrible disease. But it definitely didn't get me. Like, I'm not into the depression side of it. I'm not into the suicide part of it, which is obviously very huge. Now, it will eventually get me to the point where I don't know how well I'll be able to perform in front of the camera, because it's hard to hide. But with technology and the way things are going, and Michael J. Fox and his 1.21 gigawatts, there might be the day that I would be able to do these things, but I'm slowly working my way to smaller roles, and just kind of weaning myself off of being the lead. I think Xmas might be one of the last leading roles that I take. I'll still be in the film, just smaller roles. I'll play the bad guy or something to that effect.
So eventually you'll become the rest his soul, the Stan Lee of the Darkstone universe at some point.
Sure. If we don't get to the point medically where I can make it all kind of subside, then I'll probably get to the Stan Lee part. But we're still a little ways for that reality. And there's also bigger steps that can be taken, like there's the brain surgery that's supposed to set it back years. Granted, it's a degenerative disease, so it keeps getting worse over time, and there's no cure, and the brain surgery makes it go back a little bit, but then it'll start getting bad again. And then there's medication that deals with the symptoms, I guess. So like when you, so I think Michael J. Fox, where he's at now, is he can have 3 minutes a day where he doesn't look like he has Parkinson's. I am to the point where I'm at maybe 21 hours of the day. I can seem like I don't have Parkinson's. Now, feeling like I don't have Parkinson's, maybe 40 minutes. Because it's a constant thing that you know is a part of you. Like it's just something you have to live with. And but I'm right now at a point where I can hide it better, or I have cheats that I can do. Because you know Michael J. Fox, when he made the movie Frighteners, had Parkinson's, and he was able to hide it. Like, and you watch that movie, you don't think he has it at all. So it's you know, who knows where it's all going to end up or how it's all going to land. But I'm so lucky with my wife and my career and fans, and it's a good balance.
Yeah, like, you have that support system already in place because of, again, as you said, your wife, you have great friends, and you have a great fan base already. Who knows what the future holds in regards to your fan base, but right now it seems like you have a great dedicated fan base that will be there and stand by you if needed. And I'm sure my co-hosts will agree that we here at the show will stand by you as well.
Well, thank you. Until I start making the hamster porn, I think I'll be okay with the fan base. But once I go there, you never know if they're going to stick with me or not. But no, I'm a very lucky guy, aside from the Parkinson's. Like, and you know, that's my demon. That's what I have to deal with, and a receding hairline. But either those two things, you know, you just battle it, and then you know, you just try to stay positive, and you know, and Michael J. is doing all kinds of work, and there's a lot of hope. So you know, who knows where it's all going to land.
Now, to kind of wind things down a little bit, what are you up to now? And recently you were at Mysticon. Was it Mysticon?
Yes.
You won an award at Mysticon. Tell us a little bit, how did things go, before we go into what you're currently up to, if you're willing to talk about that. How did Mysticon go for you? I know I've seen photos of you that you've won an award for something. I couldn't really make it out what.
Oh, sure. It was a lovely convention. It's a smaller convention that I've been a part of since their first year, which I think we're on year 7 now. And they always have me back. There was 1 year I couldn't make it, but all the other years I've been there. And this was the first year I ever put my films in competition, other than a 48-hour film festival. So I thought it got to the day where I finished a film called Give Up the Ghost, which was a short film that I made to test out all the new gear for the Darknet. That's one of the things I do when I get a bunch of new gear, new camera gear. I'll go make a short film using it so I get familiar with it before, you know, investor money is involved, just to know it as best I can. So I wrote Give Up the Ghost, and I shot it, and I was pretty proud of it when I watched it, and it felt different. And so I thought, you know, this might be better than, to me anyway, might be better than some of my past films. So I put it in competition, and Mysticon placed it, and it won Best Horror Film, so which means my feeling was somewhat true. And it's actually, I think it's going to be screening at Creature Feature Weekend in Gettysburg and as another one that I think I most recently got into, and I don't know, I just felt good about it, and the Mysticon has just been so supportive of everything that I've done since the beginning, that I'll always go back until the hamster point, and they won't let me come back.
And that which leads to you, me asking, what are you up to now? If you're willing to mention or plug what you're up to? I know we talked about the Darknet finally being put onto disc or digital, but what is in the works for Darkstone and John Johnson?
I am in the midst of writing a screenplay. I'm actually not at a writer's retreat, but I couldn't actually get to the location that I wanted to go away, so I took another room in my house that I'm normally not in, and I moved a bunch of furniture into it, and I kind of made it a new room. And I am writing a film called Xmas, which is in the vein of Skeleton Key to a degree. It's written, which is very different from Skeleton Key, but the humor and the jokes are more Skeleton Key oriented, where they're very loud and very in your face and raunchy and sexual, and all the stuff that Skeleton Key was. I'm trying to make Skeleton Key was the Halloween movies. They all had that Halloween black and orange color tone feel, and now I'm starting a new series in the Christmas tone. So it's red and green. So it's a Christmas romp, and we're going to see if people like it, hopefully. But we're shooting it over the summer.
For me, the Skeleton Key films, one, as I stated earlier, it was my entry drug into the Darkstone world of Darkstone, but it felt like, from a personal standpoint, that okay, you made one or two serious films and you had to do something goofy just to let off steam. Then you did a couple more hardcore serious films, then you had to let off some steam and rinse, repeat, and rinse again, or to put it something along those lines.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think Xmas. I actually, in 2015, bought a little digital tape deck recorder, and I have been recording jokes that would come to me since 2015 for this movie. So I've been planning it a long time, and it's essentially that. It's essentially like the Darknet is a very serious kind of drama horror film, and this is not. So it's the balance. It's you get it all out of your system, and then you go make a serious film, and then all my films have a little bit of humor to them, but more serious than butt pirates and Haitians with stutters and stuff like that. So this is the opposite of that spectrum.
And I know you also mentioned stuff like Seventh Guest. You have done in the past, and I think you mentioned it earlier as well, like series films. How is, let's stick with at least Seventh Guest, because that is roughly the most recent, and I know you filmed that also recently, I think over the past summer or two as well. When is that release?
It's in post right now. It'll probably release this year. We're definitely getting the Darknet this summer. And then by the end of the year, we're probably going to have a sci-fi film called Rifters, which will be the two big releases this year. Next year will be Seventh Guest the series, which is a 10, 25-minute episode show based on the board games from the 90s. Or not board games, video games. There is a board game now that just came out, but they're PC games from 91, 93, I think. It's a completely different animal when you're doing a series. Essentially you're making like a 5-hour movie. It was exciting because I was a big fan of the video games, and to end up getting the rights to shoot a new series was like super exciting, and was traumatizing at the same time, because they left it up to me to answer some of the questions that were left from the game. So I'm literally writing the lore of the franchise that I used to love, which is, it's a big task.
And that being said, where you're like, don't let me do that. That's too much pressure on someone like myself. I don't want to do that, because there are probably a lot of hardcore fans that might come after me in a way in regards to that.
Sure. I definitely didn't back away from the task. It made me nervous, and I was scared about it for the reasons that we just said. But I also went to the creator of the video games often and was just like, I'm thinking about doing this with this storyline of this character, and this is the background, and what do you think? And then he would look at it and say yay or nay to what that idea was, if it met his original vision. And so he definitely had a hand in going over my ideas before it ever got the script.
That way you let him have at least some veto power over ideas.
Yeah, that and somebody who can be blamed with.
Would you say that even though you've done shorts, you've done full-length movies, has, as you said, doing a TV series is like doing a 5-hour film. Do you find them more draining, or is the same energy just spent out longer?
Well, no, it can be draining. I think there's a reason why television shows have a different director every episode. Rarely do you see one guy make an entire series himself. And I think it's because it is a very big task, and it's a lot of I think we shot that movie over a year and a half, or that series. So it was a long time with the process, and I'm excited to seeing it kind of now being finalized and going through color correction and seeing it come to life is super exciting, because there's so much work went into it. But that being said, I just have this ongoing passion for filmmaking, so I would probably do it again one day.
And two things, I'm going to be putting you on the spot, because this is one of the few times am able to do this. Folks at home, you're probably witnessing a rare event. As folks at home know, I do tend to review movies. This is the first time I'm able to review a film with the maker of that film, in essence, quote unquote, in studio, because this kind of scares me a little bit, because, folks, I am a Darkstone fanboy in a way, even though I'm not shy to pick apart one of Johnny's movies, because I have done that with Skeleton Key 3 Part 2 in the past. But recently, I think at an event, I picked up one Jesters, and the other one was... you reach it to get the name of what I picked up. Again, Jesters. Another one was Dr. Elemental's Mad Lab Picture Show. This was at Melloween, I think, 2 years ago. I picked these up. And let's start with Mad Lab. I did enjoy it because it reminded me of the old school horror host genre, in regards to drive-in theater with the Joe Bob Briggs, Elvira, so forth and so on. It was very enjoyable. I did chuckle, and it just had that, hey, something I'd watched on Saturday afternoons as a kid, or late at night on TNT earlier part of the century. So I'm willing to say I did enjoy it, but I will say one thing about it. IMDb has it listed as something else.
As a game?
Yeah, for Mad Lab. It doesn't have Mad Lab and Night of the Living Dead. It has something listed differently for some odd reason.
when it was originally created, it was created for a website called Flicksphere as an interactive movie. So the version you saw is actually, it's got 3 different versions of it. So it was a playable game. So when you would watch it, you would say, does Elemental drink the juice, or does Elemental not drink the juice? And you would choose that in the DVD and be taken to a different story as it progressed with you. So that's what it was originally shot for. Now, we decided to choose a path through the story and make a DVD release of it for conventions, which is what you picked up.
Okay.
And now it's gone through another version, because it's being released as a television, or not a television series, but it's being released on Amazon as a monthly show. And the first 2 episodes are the game. So the Night of the Living Dead and the Satanic Rites of Dracula are being, they just got recut, and they're being released, I think, within the month of, which the version you have has certain scenes that were omitted from it, because they were part of different choices that you would have made. But we were able to work some of them back in, not all of them, because some of them are completely different storylines. But so the Amazon release will be that the first one that gets released is Night of the Living Dead, which will have probably, I'd say, about 10 minutes more stuff than what was on the DVD. And then Satanic Rites never got released on DVD, so that'll be. It was just the game, and then this, and then after that, we'll start shooting original episodes that are not a game and they're not changed around. But I think that's why there was some confusion over what it was at the beginning, because it was made for a company for a very different purpose.
Before we go into Jester a little bit, with the Netflix Choose Your Own Adventure movie, did you have that aspect of, hey, we did this with Mad Labs 2 years ago?
Well, I actually did it with a movie called Fear Fighter, which was more like the Netflix show. But I mean, it's, Choose Your Own Adventure books have been around forever, and there's like Fear Fighter. I think is completely playable on YouTube right now. You can go to Kings of Horror and Fear Fighter, and you can play the whole game. The whole thing is uploaded. It's there are, I think, 300 different paths you could take. So, the Netflix thing, I definitely got letters where people were like, hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? Hey, I was like, yeah, I did it in 2012. But at the same time, like, I didn't come up with Choose Your Own Adventure. That's an older thing from the 80s. I just made a movie version of it.
And Fear Fighter was what you did, and I think you were in full facial makeup and a kind of a top hat sort of deal. That
is Frightmares.
Oh, Frightmares. Okay.
That was a short. We had a short film competition in like 2008, and I was the horror host of that competition. Fear Fighter is actually a full-on story about people who travel into a dimension where people's worst fears come to life, and they're trying to stop that from happening. It's kind of a big fantasy horror movie with all kinds of monsters, vampires, werewolves. All kinds of fears, mimes. There's mimes. So that's more of a narrative story. Okay.
And the other one, as a lot of you heard me talk about earlier, this broadcast was The Jester. I know you and one broadcast kind of said, well, it's not the best. You're not going to like it. I did find it enjoyable. The thing is, it does have a few standard tropes into it, but I could understand as a fan and kind of knowing the film, almost how some filmmakers do things. Folks at home, I do suggest if The Jester is on Amazon, please check it out, but there is a little bit of spoilers in this. The main... I want to say boyfriend lead is made by a Darkstone regular by the name of Chris Duncan, and he also plays the Jester. In the storyline, you find out, I'm not going to spoil the full storyline, that when Chris Duncan is not in makeup as the Jester, you find out him and the Jester are kind of this familiar relations. And what John Johnson has done, it's the aspect of showing that, well, these two are actually related. It's that nice little hint, even though in science, good chance that's not going to happen, but it's a good way to get that idea in somebody's head. I don't know, John, were you planning on that, or was there going to be something, two different people playing those, or I should say, a different actor or actress playing the Jester than the opposing lead?
Oh yeah, no, that was, you remember when we talked about going to a hotel room to fix a problem?
Right.
We had another actor who was scheduled to play the Garrett role, the boyfriend. Not the Jester was always Duncan.
Okay.
But then when we, the day before we started shooting, now we shot this whole movie in 12 days. But the day before we stopped, he bailed from the film, and so I had nobody else. Like, we started the next day, and so then I was like, well, Duncan's in the makeup, maybe he could play both parts. And I didn't trust it enough, so I wrote the storyline of him being a descendant. But to be honest, until the ending credits, about 90% of the people who watch it don't realize it's the same guy. But I didn't have full confidence in it because we were just shooting it, so I wrote the descendant role, or connected it as a descendant. So
it's something that you could say happy coincidence that you were able to solve.
Yes, it was definitely a fix that I was happy with.
And even though this film came out, even though it was filmed in 2006, according to the credits, it came out closer to 2010, 2012, I think. Did it not?
Yes.
And
it was one of the ones that went on the shelf because nobody was after SD films, and then we thought we'd just release it on DVD, where SD's okay, at conventions and off of our website. And so it was like a trial-based, because we always try to have something at a convention that you can't get anywhere else, other than, like, you could order it off the website or go to a con, but it's not in the store. And
something along the lines of what you did with, looking at the title for reference, the Lovecraft Chronicles.
Exactly. Lovecraft was made specifically for convention. We'll sell it off the site because some people can't make it out to the con and they want to get a copy of it. So we have it so that you can order it from Darkstone directly, but it's not available anywhere else. And the Jester was originally supposed to be that, but then I think we ended up getting it released on Amazon.
I must say the Jester tends to have a lot of the... I'm not saying it's a bad thing in regards to what you do, Johnny. It does. I must say, if a lot of you out there are getting into Darkstone films, he does not do that. I'm going to put it like this: he does not do this every film, but there is a decent percentage of the films that have blood, gore, and nudity. So please beware of that if any of that is a trigger for you. But it is done in fun. They are good movies. And speaking in regards to the trope of nudity, have you found problems with this? Again, I don't want to... If you don't want to answer, please let me know, and that way I will back off that aspect.
You're talking about, like, in the political day and age of today?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, yeah, there was I've only one encounter so far, which was a guy who kind of aggressed me on Facebook, kind of white knighting, in the argument that he kind of didn't understand what the Me Too movement was. Me Too movement is, don't be a rapist, and, that's a good thing. Don't grope people, and that's a good thing, and give women equal rights. But he took it to nudity in film is degrading women. And he's completely wrong about that, where, a lot of girls actually chimed in who had worked for me or worked with me and had done nudity. It's like it gives them power. They feel stronger. They feel good and confident about their bodies. So if you're not treating them poorly, then there's really no, you can still, be attracted to women and men and not, just be respectful. And I think that's all it really is.
And I think,
far as nudity is concerned.
In that post, I remember that post as well. He got, this gentleman, if you want to call him that, got destroyed with everybody's arguments on your side, for that matter. I want to say that. And even you, I think you chimed in. I think Chris Duncan chimed in. Others that worked with you chimed in, saying that this is not our policies in any way, shape, or form in regards to, what we do. We don't, if one of our female performers does not want to do this, she doesn't have to do this, and we will work around this.
When we pitch a role, it's got we give them the script, and the script has in detail of like what happens in the scene. We've never like thrown it at somebody while they're on set. Like, oh, by the way, you're gonna have a sex scene in the shower. Like this has been discussed way before they've ever accepted the role. Like it's never, maybe in Skeleton Key, if we've done like 10 jokes with boobs and a girl, and we're like, we wrote an 11th joke, are you okay with this? Something to that degree, but they've already done 10 jokes before. It's never somebody who's not comfortable in that world anyway. But yeah, this guy was the only guy I've ever been attacked by. And of course, it was like a white guy who is just, he's got all of his facts wrong. And, once again, it goes back to the thing where, we get people work with us because we treat them with respect and we're just good to people. And if you stay that way, people will want to work with you. And be willing to show their boobs.
Before we head on out, I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to, even though probably not everything that I should be covering. I think over the past close to 2 hours, we covered a hell of a lot of ground. Is there any advice that you would like to give a young person who wants to start their own, or get into what you're doing, or that independent filmmaker that is kind of questioning themselves right now in regards to what to do? Do you have anything for them?
I guess the big one for me is just never give up. Like, it's easy now with technology, and like it used to be back when I was starting out, that it'd be the guy sitting on the couch saying, well, I could make a movie like that, and then that's as far as it went. Now that everybody's got a cell phone and can just, literally get up off the couch and start shooting 2 seconds after they have the idea, that argument's kind of passed. But what I would say to young filmmakers is just never give up, because the second you start making your movie, everything's going to be against you. Like, that's just what movie making is. So just don't quit, because you will regret quitting more than you will like making a bad movie. Even if you made a bad movie, at the end of the day, you made a movie. So my advice is just never give up.
And to those that are out there, would you say that if you feel like there's something should be done, or a different viewpoint to, hey, you too can be a filmmaker, you can pick up that, in essence, that pen and paper and create a film because of that ease right now?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a lot easier to make a movie now than it was in 1994. So there's nothing stopping you except for you.
And I think that's pretty much it. I have nothing more to ask or to speak to Mr. Johnson about. Unless he has any last words, I think we could end it right here.
Cool. Yeah. Stay in drugs and eat your school.
Welcome back, everyone, and yes, I am still gushing with good fanboy energy because I'm still excited that this episode happened, and As always, if you wish to join in the conversation, you could send us an email at longcoatmafia@gmail.com or go over to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Longcoat Mafia Podcast, and click that message button and leave us a message. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that like button so you're able to follow us and see news tidbits, videos, live streams, and a whole lot more, and be notified for when new episodes do come out. But if you wish to follow John Johnson and Darkstone Entertainment, his links and the Darkstone Entertainment links will be in the show description / show notes down below. And to continue on with social media, our social media, as always, is, again, facebook.com/The Longcoat Mafia Podcast, and our email, if you wish to, again, join in the conversation, is Longcoat Mafia Podcast. We do read emails and comments on the air. And if you wish to DM us or follow us on Twitter, you're able to do so by heading over to Longcoat Mafia and clicking that follow button. And speaking of the follow button, you can also head on over to Instagram and looking up Longcoat Mafia there and clicking that follow button to see when we post up new episodes, funny stuff, where we've been, and when we go to events, we post stuff up. We tend to post up a few memes every now and again to promote the show. So follow us on there, and plus you're able to DM us on there. What else? We do have a Mixer.com channel, which is Microsoft's answer to Twitch. It is Mixer.com/LCMP. I got to start streaming again. I've been doing good for the first month or so of the year, then I kind of just died off for a little bit. I got to get back into it. So, I will. I got 3 new games, 2 of which I quite possibly will be streaming on Mixer again. So stick around for that. And I might add the LCMP is capitalized. What else? Our YouTube channel. We are doing good this year with our promise of posting up more videos to YouTube. So head on to YouTube and search up the Longcoat Mafia Podcast, or at least Longcoat Mafia Podcast. We're the first item that comes up. So click that, then click the subscribe button and hit that notification bell, because you will want to be notified about when we post up new videos. And you want to be a part of our YouTube channel, because there'll be times when we put up exclusive content to YouTube as well as exclusive video content to Facebook. So you want to be subscribed and liked to both. So I think that is about it. I don't want to say stay tuned, because we have a lot of stuff coming. There's a lot of more videos going to be posted up, a lot more episodes this year. We are gunning for hopefully another 200 episodes. Don't know if it's going to fully happen, but I'm looking forward to doing another 200 episodes, and I want all of you out there to stick with us, to like our social media, like these episodes, share these episodes, and to prove to places like Facebook and Twitter, you don't have to pay to win. So support us, especially support someone like John Johnson and Darkstone Entertainment, who put out great indie content, and by sharing our episode, you're helping him out, get the word out as to who he is. So enough of my ranting and raving right now with good fanboy energy. I'm going to see all of you next week with a brand new episode. So good night, everyone. I'll see all of you next week.
You've been listening to the Longcoat Mafia Podcast, the internet's most hated and mafia-themed geek podcast.